you so much.
All right, so let's get started. All right. Could you start by just introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Ismail Bali. I'm the founder and CEO of YieldSec. YieldSec is a technical intelligence platform that looks at the total online marketplace, so looking at legal and illegal operations online. We work in industries such as gambling, streaming, crypto, and consumer goods.
Could you give us a sense of the scale of online gambling? What's the industry? Is the industry growing? How big is it?
So industry is definitely growing. Okay, so wherever you go around the world, everybody's interested in gambling, and there are lots of things nowadays that were considered games that are now also gambling. Basically, and I think everybody online learned a lot from the gambling industry. Basically, I've been in the industry 25 years now in operations, sites like Sporting Bet, Poker Stars, and Paradise Poker, and came out of operations, went into a period of my career where I was consulting, and lots of clients were coming to me saying that they weren't making money from online gaming anymore, legal, regulated online gaming. So there was a period in this business that 3 decades ago, you could set up an online gaming operation, and I was one of those people. There wasn't any laws, there wasn't any rules, and you weren't breaking any laws. Then regulation came in on a country by country basis. UK first in 2005, America finally in 2018. So when you have legal gambling, you still already had an existing marketplace where consumers were already interested in gambling. This is a product that people demand and desire, and it's a product it's an industry that features products with risks. The problem is you've got one marketplace in every jurisdiction, United Kingdom, United States obviously broken out by states, New Jersey, California, etc. They can legalize that, and then you have two industries in the one marketplace: a legal, licensed, regulated industry, and illegal, unlicensed, criminal industry. So I was the first person to basically come out and notice this and say, you need to be monitoring this effectively, because if you don't monitor everything that's going on, where are all the audience, what's their activity, and how much money are they spending, how can you control this product? And this product fundamentally can deliver substantial good for what we call the three C's: commerce, community, and consumers. If you get the gambling business right online, it's a perfect distribution model, low costs. You reach consumers who demand and desire these products, and they interact with it, and you can produce a ton of money for local commerce, in-state jobs, in-state taxation, community benefit, and consumers are safe and protected. What you have now is a free-for-all where the legal guys are regulated and policed, but nobody's been looking at the illegal guys. In terms of scale and size, to answer your question, right now around the world, basically there's $5.7 trillion a year wagered just on illegal gambling. Legal gambling is absolutely dwarfed in comparison, okay? So this is a David and Goliath kind of contest between these two. So illegal gambling has all the products, meets the audience wherever they are, doesn't pay any attention to rules, laws, taxation, nothing to do with age limits. We don't care if you're 8 years old or 80, we'll take your money, okay? So they get around all of the KYC rules, know your customer. They get around all of the age verification stuff, ID verification, and they fundamentally understand in illegal gambling, if people are interested in sports, they'll be interested in gambling, and we can subvert your attention of sports, your cultural affinity with sports. We can turn that into money. And from sports, cheapest recruitment method for any illegal gambling company, will then cross-sell you, because we have all the products in one place. We'll cross-sell you into other things, mainly casino, because on those products you can drive up to a 50% profit margin. Sports betting, you're lucky if you're single-digit profit, whether you're legal or illegal. Most customers win on sports, most customers lose on casino.
And I'm wondering, what does the difference look like between the legal online gambling and the illegal? Are they, I mean, I vision the illegal sites as these shady, bad kind of websites. Do they offer different things to gamble on, or can you describe visually what's the difference between the two?
So, Sam, it's a great question because, again, from a customer's perspective, what you see, I don't see any difference. I was on Google and I was looking for best casino offers. They'll be
Hmm.
legal and illegal mixed in that list. I'm on Instagram and I'm looking at posts. There's legal and illegal mixed in that stuff. The minute you've shown an interest in gambling, in a product that has a money or money's worth bet on some prediction of an outcome in the future, and that's just to be clear, prediction products are a new thing. We'll probably talk about that on the call today. But there's a whole area here which is just I'm thinking that my opinion of what's going to happen in a NFL game, in a English Premier League Cup game, in a on a slot machine. My opinion of what's going to happen, I'm backing with money. Okay, all money's worth, because that's when we get into all of the video gaming stuff as well, where you've
Yeah.
got esports, as people call it. So people are basically interested in this stuff, and illegal gambling looks exactly the same as legal gambling. Often the games that you play on those websites, the slot machines that you'll play, will be exactly the same. So even the suppliers are also being hoodwinked and stolen from here. And fundamentally, what this comes down to is everyone is a victim of illegal gambling. Okay, once you have it, there's no commerce benefit, local in-state jobs, national jobs. There's no community benefit, because no one's making money and paying tax from that legal spectrum. And consumers are the victims too, because there are tons of websites set up just for. This weekend we saw the what we call the Manchester Derby, Man City versus Man United. There are websites just set up specifically for that match. So Man City versus ManU.com, go to that website, you'll basically put your money in, and on Monday there's nothing there. There's no website, it's moved on. So you will look at this stuff and think, okay, well, how could I tell? I know that there are big brands out there, BetMGM, Ladbrokes, William Hill. I went to one of those brands and I didn't like the prices, but these guys were offering me so much more money. And that too good to be true thing and checking your sources are lessons we unlearned online, especially during the pandemic. It rewired a lot of consumer behavior, because we will believe nonsense that people tell us. Look at any advertising on Instagram for any type of product. The kind of stuff you see there is the kind of stuff that used to be in bad newspapers in the 1970s and 80s, right in the back. And it would say, I can make your penis bigger. I can do this for
Yeah.
you. It's
Yeah.
like, no, that stuff's not true. You can't do
Yeah.
that. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
we can. But if you see enough convincing videos by influencers, you'll be like, okay, maybe it is true.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they're doing with gambling. But gambling's even more incendiary, because what happens with things like, let's look at the Super Bowl the last 2 years, okay? So there was basically, we've predicted from all the data that we see. We're not just guessing, okay? So we analyze audience activity online. All the audience, all their activity, all the time. So I don't need to hack anything. I don't need to know it's you, Sam Ellis, but I do know where you're based. And I do know that you're an internet connection, you're looking at all these sites, and I can see user traffic from above, the metadata, to get to, okay, he's obviously visiting 15, 20 gambling sites in this particular day. He's interested in betting on the Super Bowl, but how did you get there? That's the key thing. So what YieldSec does is look at what we call the audience ecosystem essentials. So search, sites, streaming, ads, apps, all these pieces feed into it. So where did you come from? Was it a WhatsApp conversation on Telegram? Was it an Instagram post? Was it a search you did on Google? And all of that activity is important. Why? Because you've been cookied and sold as a piece of data now. So the fact that you looked for something and you ended up clicking on one of these crazy sounding illegal gambling offers that offer you 10, 50, 100 times what any legal firm will offer you, because you've clicked that link, even if you didn't bet that day or open an account that day, your data has now been mined and sold to a whole bunch of other people. So more of what you see in the future will be from illegal gambling, because they know that Sam Ellis is interested, isn't he? But he might not put his money down yet, but we'll get his money eventually.
Got him eventually.
So we have two key measures in any marketplace we look at. We have the GGR split, gross gaming revenue. That's basically bets minus customer winnings equals the money. That's revenue to a gambling company, what's left behind after you've paid the winning customers. So customer losses are gambling company profit effectively. Now, that's one measure. We say that America, for example, is running at like 71, 29% kind of split in favor of illegal gambling right now. Last year, in fact, was 74, 26. So it's getting worse, if not better. But the other measure we use is what we call audience exposure. So we look at all of the stuff you've seen, all of these 8 ecosystem essentials, as we call them, all of the stuff that you're seeing. What's it going to do in the future? So where could that GGR split land in a year, 18 months' time? If more of what the audience who are interested in gambling are looking for is illegal, what's the difference to them? Legal, illegal, I don't care. I just want to get my bet on. That percentage in America, for example, so 74, 26% split on GGR last year. As a matter of fact, 74% of all gambling company profitability was with illegals. Okay, 26% only went to legals. And to put that in size, that's about $23 billion is what's coming into the legal, and about 67 is going to illegals on that
So
one.
you're saying the illegal companies are doing a pretty damn good job, just operating almost as a legal company.
Effectively, these guys, again, when I come out as Yieldtech, I came out at the beginning of this 5 years ago when we first started. I know I'd bought an ex-military platform that was used for finding terrorist content, things like beheading videos from Al Qaeda and ISIS. It was the only thing I'd seen that could find content at scale and basically go, it's not just about the websites, it's about everything, how you get there. It's the granularity of how audiences moved and how audiences heard it effectively online. So how do I go from something I was interested in? I heard that Taylor Swift appearing at the Super Bowl last year might get me 10 times my money if she's wearing pink lipstick. So I'm interested in that bet. That brought in 23% of the audience betting on the Super Bowl last year in America, of American consumers. 23% were women. We've never seen those kind of splits before. It's usually about 5, 6, 10% of women kind of betting on something. 23% came from that social media activation, which was illegal gambling companies going, hey, let's all talk about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And then they subverted it into, and now put a bet on it. Now, is she going to be sitting next to Taylor Swift? Is she going to be sitting next to Travis's mum? Is she going to be pregnant? Is she going to be wearing an engagement ring? So all of these predictor type bets came out of it. So they understood very clearly, and this is probably segues us into what we're going to talk about with content. Illegal gambling understood during the pandemic when they lost sports, because sports all got cancelled when everybody had COVID. What do we do now? And the whole world panicked at that point. Everybody was kind of like, I remember there were headlines in the industry trade press saying things like it's the end of the gambling industry. If we don't have sports betting, how are we going to keep customers interested? Because eventually they'll get bored of losing money on slot machines. And there's no variation in play. If you lose sports betting and it's just casino, you'll be like, okay, dude, I've lost my mortgage payment. I can't do this anymore. It's $10 a week kind of hobby betting type stuff that gets you customers and builds profitability and loyalty. So at that point, illegal gambling companies were like, okay, we can't just exist as a parasite anymore on sports. We need to do something interesting here. So they started looking for other content. And what they came up with was crazy things like snail racing from Vietnam. They have these huge snails. Let's film those. Let's make them drink Coca-Cola. Apparently, if you give them Coca-Cola, they go faster and the caffeine and stuff. So that's what they were filming. And then they found people were clicking on it on social media and betting on it too. The betting money might have been tiny, but the whole point was just audience aggregation and audience registration and conversion. Get them to sign up for something. So any piece of content will work. It's why illegal gambling companies are all over illegal streaming of movies, TV shows, and sports events, because they see that there's a cost of entry for movies, TV shows, and sports events. Gladiator 2, for example, had 100 million illegal streams in 1 week. 1 week, okay? That movie was leaked early, 2 weeks before it came out in movie theaters in America last year. And what did that lead to? So somebody at a journalist screenings filmed it on an iPhone, put it online, and sold it to somebody. Who did they sell it to? 1xBet, an illegal gambling company, was the first sponsor of that movie. We heard numbers from chatter we find on user groups online that the first sponsorship of that film was sold for $500,000. So it's like a big ticket sponsorship item for a gambling company, okay? So they paid $500,000 to put their logo throughout it. You could click on it, and they had such a huge audience from that even if you're working on a less than 1% conversion rate, 100 million people illegally streaming that movie to save themselves, what, $20 because they don't need to go to AMC? There's money there, clearly. So you might well be dealing with an audience that many of those would never have gone to the movie theater. But you're dealing with an audience now that gambling companies are not used to these kind of massive conversion numbers where you could say, we sponsored something and we saw 100 million people click on it. That's insane, okay? Illegal gambling companies are all over illegal streaming because it's such a mass market audience. Bring everyone here. It's like having a World Cup every
and the kind of people I imagine that would go to illegal gambling as well. If you're streaming an illegal movie, you're probably willing to go to an illegal gambling site at the same time.
But you don't know they're illegal. That's the thing. And the way that we see audience, if you're under 30 years old, anywhere in the world, you look at illegal streaming as, well, I just wanted to find that content and I search for it and it's there. I don't know that it's illegal. And also the other question that audiences don't ask themselves is, I never needed to pay for anything and they're not asking me for anything. There's no registration even on a lot of these sites. So how are they making money out of me? I'm not the fool here. You guys are all the fools. You should be illegally streaming because it's free. It's not free. Okay, just 1 point on illegal streaming. Illegal streaming is never free. What's going on in the background, Yieldtech monitors for all of this, is Bitcoin mining, processing. They're using your machine processing power. So just a quick example of this. You run a laptop or a mobile phone on the exact same platforms, one on Netflix and one on an illegal streaming platform. The Netflix thing will give you 4K HD download, no problem. Okay, you can stream that movie, stream that TV show, stream that sports event. It will be perfect. Okay, and there'll be no buffering or juddering or any issues. You run the same show that's been ripped off and put on an illegal streaming site, it will run with delays. You will have to click 20, 30 times during that film, TV show, sports event to get the thing to carry on playing for you because it's interrupted by gambling ads all the time. And the other thing you'll notice immediately, your machine processing power goes to hell. Okay? Why?
Yeah.
Because it's been taken away by the devil, basically. They're using your machine processing power because you've given it a window into your soul, effectively. Your computer processing power is now doing illegal Bitcoin mining. It's doing child sexual abuse material storage. It's doing a whole bunch of stuff in the background and data mining you and keystroke logging you. So at some point, you will become a victim of crime. You just don't know it yet.
Wow.
That's what it's doing.
That feels like a whole nother video. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, the streaming stuff is shocking. But again, there is a horrible nexus between illegal gambling and illegal streaming that came up during the pandemic, where
Yeah.
illegal gambling basically was like, we don't have anything to show people. Then they were like, okay, people are all watching things like TV shows, and why don't we advertise there to get them to slots? That was working a little bit. But then they came up with, hold on a minute, any form of content works. So we put our logos, we put our links on any old crap on illegal streaming, and there is literally everything on illegal streaming. Any show you can think of will be on illegal streaming immediately. Big new show at the moment is a Tom Hardy TV show called Mobland. Mobland airs, I think the initial episodes come out every Sunday on Paramount Plus. The new episode comes out on a Sunday at midnight Eastern Time. At midnight 01, the new episode is in HD on 500 illegal streaming platforms, okay, immediately. So as soon as it's released, it's been ripped, okay, regardless of any security these people put on. And the whole point is, again, everyone's being stolen from here, including the consumer, because they're using you. You are their product, basically. They want your audience data, they want your machine processing power, and they also just want to straight up steal from you, which basically means put a keystroke logger and malware and spyware on their machine, and then the next time they hit their bank account, got all their details.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
there's a whole tale of selling that stuff. So we can talk about that in the future.
Yeah. I want to talk about 1xBet. So you've talked about legal and illegal. Where does 1x?
Let me answer one thing for you, Sam, on that point. Do customers know the difference between legal and illegal gambling? No.
Yeah.
It all looks the same. I came to it via a whole bunch of different things I was doing, my online activity, search, streaming, social media, and I got to something that basically said you can get a $500 sign-up bonus today, and you can bet on these events, you can play these slots, you could win the lottery. I believe it because it looks exactly like all the other stuff.
So 1xBet.
Yeah.
You've talked about legal, illegal. Where does it lie?
So this is an interesting point because I call this out on the basis of what is illegal gambling? If you are not licensed in the jurisdiction you target, are accessible in, and transacting in, if you are not hitting those TATs, as we call them, targeting, accessible, transacting, if you're not licensed in the place that you're taking the money from, you are a crook. Okay? Period. That's it. So it's really simple here. If you're available in that place, you've done something active to get your website seen. So I've done deals with affiliates who basically help advertise my product. I've done things like taking advertising deals that use cloning and masking to make sure that Google, Facebook don't know I'm advertising gambling, and I get under the radar with them. I do things like illegal streaming, and I bought sponsorship for the American audience, the Indian audience. Those are all forms of targeting. Accessibility, DraftKings is available in most countries in the world, but it's not transacting there because they don't want to get done by the Chinese for, hold on a minute, guys, we ain't got no gaming licensing. Why are you here? DraftKings is a big publicly traded company. They want to be visible everywhere. They have that future brand mission of, we'll let you open an account and register, but we're not taking money from you because we're not in your country yet. That message comes up on the screen. So that's showing you what legal gambling companies do. Illegal gambling companies don't care. We want to be in China. We want to be in Burma. We want to be in England. We want to be in the United States. So we're available everywhere because it's better to be multiply available in many languages all the time. So the whole point of illegal gambling, if you are targeting, accessible, and transacting in a territory, and you're not licensed there, you are illegal gambling. And in our view, you're a crook. Because all this really is, Sam, what does it come down to? People want to give themselves labels like, oh, I'm a grey market operator. So you'll hear that a lot. What does
Yeah.
grey market mean exactly? So it's a phrase that they used from a phenomenon that happened in economics with imports of goods, very topical at the moment with tariffs. If I have a tariff on something, basically being brought into the United States, I can try and avoid it by saying that the goods are somehow different, or that the goods are coming to the US to then be transshipped to Colombia, for example.
Okay.
So it's a grey import, but really you bring them to the US and you sell them in the US at a lower price, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Grey market gambling, in my view, doesn't exist. It's a label that people like to give themselves when they know they're thieves, but no one likes being called a thief.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
like the coat you want to wear to go, I'm no crook. It's a really
Yeah.
lovely coat, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a designer coat, definitely, but I'm nothing more than a criminal because basically I'm doing something. Whereas I didn't want to come to this country and tell them I'm a gambling company. Why? Because you probably wouldn't have got licensing, because when you looked into, you've probably got a ton of criminal records, convictions in your background, and people know that you're a crook who's had bad practices elsewhere in the world. What companies like OneXBet do, okay? And then by no means are these guys the only ones doing it. There are thousands of companies doing this, but OneXBet is the tip of the spear kind of thing. They're the biggest out there, and they're the company that everybody else in illegal gambling would really love to be. They hope to be OneXBet one day. So there's a split in how we look at the world of illegal gambling. There are what we call legacy illegal gambling companies, people like OneXBet. Been there for decades, been around for a long time, have a little bit of licensing here and there, even had licenses in places like the United Kingdom at one point, then got thrown out for a whole bunch of, what are you guys doing? You're running a really weird operation here and you're not paying much tax. And, oh, we're not making any money, I swear. But you were kind of making a ton of money. They also do a ton of licensing in places like Curacao and Malta and the Isle of Man. Now, not to be down on those regimes, but those regimes are all questionable, okay? Because you can buy a license fairly easily. There's not much oversight and checking of what your practices are, what your business is, who your directors are, who your staff are, do they have criminal records, all the stuff that you would go through if you went to New Jersey and talked to the Division of Gaming Enforcement, that you would have if you went to the United Kingdom and talked to the United Kingdom Gambling Commission. You have to go through checks. That's the whole point of regulation. So when you get licensing from places like Curacao, Malta, the Anjouan island of Anjouan, part of the Comoros Islands, you go and get licenses here, you're just buying off the shelf, setting up a white label, it's ready-made, casino, sportsbook, poker room, and you're open for business immediately. We see advertising for firms that do white label supply deals. We'll get your license, we'll set you up with an online website. You just give us the brand you want. We'll set up all the branding for you too, get your games, get your payment processing. We'll get you up and running in 2 weeks for $50,000 in. You'll be making 10 grand a week within a month. Okay,
Yeah.
That's how this works.
Yeah.
It's a very low cost of entry to be a crook, basically. And why do you need licensing? Very good question. Okay. Why do you need licensing in these weird places like Isle of Man, like Malta, like Curacao? Why do you need licensing there? Is it because you want to look above board to customers? Is it because you want to be part of a regulated industry? No, it's because you want access to bank accounts. You want to put your money somewhere. So when you can produce a license from Curacao and you take it to a Caribbean bank, they'll go, oh, okay, great. You're going to be seeing like 100 grand a day kind of thing. So fine, set you up with a bank account and give you the ability to move your money from some dodgy island to a rule of law banking system where you can now buy property, move your money all over the world. That's the point here. It's a game, okay? So all of this stuff with licensing in these jurisdictions, question why they take licensing on. Is any consumer out there going, oh, well, I see that you've got an Isle of Man license. I see that you have a Curacao license. I know that those are wonderful regulatory regimes, and they're constantly in the news for busting on firms that are corrupt and don't have good customer practices. Ever. When have they ever fined anybody? When has Curacao ever said, oh, we really need to look into some people? Curacao did one thing in its 30-year history. An interesting point on Curacao. Curacao was the first regime in the world, to have gambling regulation. From when? 1995. Okay.
Right.
So they happened in 1995, and you might think, oh my goodness, it's like the most historic gambling regulated regime in the world. It was set up by people involved in crime, who basically, according to the BBC, okay, BBC investigated this and said there was a meeting with a Treasury minister in the mid-90s who had a gun put to his head and was told, give us gambling regulations, sign this piece of paper, and now there are going to be 6 master licensees, as they're known. Those master licensees have the ability to issue sub-licensing And that's what Curaçao's gaming regime is based on. It's
Yeah.
basically 6 headline license holders who have issued hundreds of thousands, if not millions of licenses at this point, under a sub-licensing system that's never been approved by the government. Curaçao is now trying desperately to kind of backfill this and say we're going to change everything. And that's been going on for the last 3 years. We've been hearing about change in Curaçao. Nothing's really changed, however. So all of these companies still have licensing there. And we see this revolving door between Curaçao and Malta, where Malta went on the FATF, Financial Action Task Force, grey list in 2019. There was a rush of applications to Curaçao the same week.
Okay.
When Malta came off the Financial Action Task Force list a year or so later, there was a rush back to Malta again. So there's this revolving door between regimes to go, I just need to get somewhere that allows me to do the payment processing. So if I have a license, I get bank accounts. If I have bank accounts, I get payment processing. That's the game here. And it's the same reason that regimes like Isle of Man exist. It's the same reason that Anjouan's got into this, because they're like, Curacao and Malta make a lot of money out of this stuff, so why can't we do it too? And I understand, okay? If you're a regime that has a very limited income for GDP, what do you do? And if you can turn your island, the island of Anjouan, into a kind of, well, we can just be selling these things for 50 grand a pop, licensing, then there's tons of companies, hundreds want to come here. So there's nobody looking at what these companies are doing, but what these companies, having a license in Malta, Curacao, what does it allow you to do? So being licensed on this grey market basis, which is nice to say, I'm not a thief, that's what I'm telling you these things are for. If I'm licensed in Malta, does it mean I can go to France and start selling people gambling? No. Even though Malta's in the EU, it's got nothing to do with it. You need state-by-state licensing, nation by nation, state by state. That's the point. Targeting, accessible, transacting, you need a license in the place you're targeting and taking money from. Malta doesn't allow you to do that. Malta's license also doesn't allow you to take money out of Malta either.
Yeah,
So anybody in Malta with a license, anybody with a Curacao license, one of the first conditions you'll see on that license is don't do anything nasty here.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
They're not telling you you could do other stuff elsewhere, but they're just saying you have a license here, but it's a meaningless license because that license doesn't allow you entry into Malta. That license doesn't allow you entry into anywhere else in the world. Everything is jurisdiction specific. So these licenses are purely means of moving money and means of payment processing.
So what makes 1xBet illegal is that, so you said, okay, they have this license in Curacao or whatever. What makes them illegal is that they're also then targeting and taking money from other countries in the world?
So put the license to one side. You have a license because it means you can move money. You have bank accounts, you can do payment processing. That's why licensing in these places exists. It's not so that you can open the door on, I got my UK gambling license. Why? So I can do gambling in the UK. That's the point of getting the UK license. If you then go to what are they doing elsewhere in the world, all these illegal gambling companies get licensing somewhere just because they need to be able to move money and provide payment processing from customers from all over the world, okay? And on the face of it, a Curacao and Isle of Man license might prove that to a bank, I guess, in their kind of KYC and know your customer stuff. All these companies are unlicensed generally, as a rule, in jurisdictions that they're available, transacting and targeting, okay? So if you look at 1xBet, it's available in a whole bunch of countries where it has no licensing whatsoever, even though those places have very strict license regimes. So 1xBet went into the UK. Why? Because it was great to get a license at one point and then sponsor a bunch of things and then get told off and get made to leave, which took years for them to be thrown out of the UK. And then when they did, are they still available in the UK? Well, officially, no. 1xBet.com is not available because the regulator blocks it. But there's a thing called mirrors and redirects, isn't there? Which is what Yieldsec brought to the world as well. We were like, okay, there are thousands of websites out there. If you look at America, America has 95 legal online gaming companies. 95, okay? How many illegal ones are there? 917, okay? Why? That's a low number generally for most marketplaces because America's a very settled, illegally dominated marketplace. Its competition was done decades ago. If you look at marketplaces in Europe, some of these marketplaces are running in the thousands of operators because they realize regulators are very quick to catch up with this stuff. Many of them use people like Yieldsec to basically find what's out there. We tell people this is what you need to be blocking this week, today, on the next Super Bowl, on the next NFL game. So you need to be having a very active view of, if I don't monitor, I can't police and I can't enforce the will of the marketplace, the will of the law, and all the companies legally don't make any money because obviously consumers vote with their wallets on this stuff. And if you're being told you'll make more money here, with an illegal gambling company who doesn't pay tax, who generally doesn't pay all of the costs associated with jurisdiction-specific licensing, registration, a whole bunch of stuff for responsible gaming that they have to comply with, things like affordability checks, things like deposit limits in many European countries. Illegal gambling does not have any of that. It's the black mirror of what the legal gambling world is. So illegal gambling basically just says, we don't care if you're 8 or 80, we'll take your money. We don't care if you're poor or rich, we'll take your money. We're not asking
Yeah.
any questions other than email address, phone number, and money now. And that's it.
So I'm in New York. I used a VPN to check out 1xBet through Canada, where it is, I guess, allowed to get access. What is anything there illegal? Is the fact that 1xBet was available in Canada illegal? Did I do anything illegal?
So using a VPN, let's just talk about that for a second. You're using a VPN because you're an investigative journalist. So you want to
Yeah.
see if you can access the website.
Yeah.
Sam, you don't need to use a VPN. There are hundreds of mirrors for 1xBet across every territory in the world.
When
Okay.
you say mirror, can you describe what that
So
is?
mirror is basically 1xbet.com is blocked in the United Kingdom because 1xBet lost their license there. 1x slots is not. 1xbyte is not. 1x1234579.com is not. So basically, how do I get to that URL as a consumer? Am I psychic? Do I know that they changed the URL because they lost the last one? You don't need to be, because you'll find it through the ads, you'll find it through the social media, you'll find it through Telegram, you'll find it through WhatsApp, you'll find it on Twitter. So all of this stuff is coming to you from a million things that you just press a clicky button on, and that's it there. So you don't need to worry about, do I remember the brand name for Walmart.com? You don't need to know that Walmart.com exists. You just need to know where to buy stuff. And there's basically, okay, these people are selling something, click. These people are selling something, click. And you end up there. One of the ways that mirrors and redirects work is by basically saying we don't just have one website, one point of failure on our illegal money that we're stealing from these people. We have many points, okay? And it's the best analogy here is drug dealing. So drug dealing exists on tons of street corners all across New York, all across every city in the world, okay? If the police go and mob one street corner and say, okay, there's no drug dealing anymore, it doesn't mean that drug dealing stopped. It just stopped on that street corner because no one wants to get arrested and go to jail. But it doesn't mean that you ended drug dealing. It's exactly the same on the internet. Just because you take down one website, it did nothing to stop the business. That business is basically already ready. A business as usual strategy for illegals is be multiply available all the time. And since most traffic nowadays is through apps, Sam, I don't need to care what the website address is. I don't need to know that 1xbet.com is where I should be going. I can be sent anywhere. The app can be updated by something as simple as a text message coming to your phone. That SMS message has access to your registry the same way that an app has access to your registry. Because you downloaded and installed that app at some point that you were interested in betting with 1xBet, you basically, even if you deleted the app now, okay, that thing, that text message you received, and we see a lot of this nowadays, all of us get anonymous text messages saying things like, hey, hi, I haven't seen you in ages, let's meet up for a drink, and we just delete them. Receiving that message updated your registry to send you to a new place next time you open the 1xBet app. So it will constantly be available. So unless you understand the way the beast works here, this is how crime works. Always adapt, always be changing, never stay in the same place for too long, because then you get caught with the money. And this is a game of pass the parcel where you're constantly going, get the money here, move the money there, move the license there, constantly move things around. So nobody really knows. I don't even know where these guys are based. Legal, illegal, I don't care. So the whole point with a company like 1xBet is no one can find out where a head office is, apart from Cyprus is where, and it's pure triangulation, old transnational criminal gang kind of metrics here. So offices in Cyprus, license in Curacao, banking all over the world, okay? Money's constantly moving. Doing sponsorships, big ticket sponsorships like Barcelona Football Club, okay? Because you just offered them so much money that they couldn't say no to you, okay? And 1xBet will sponsor literally anything. Somebody uncrossing their legs could get sponsored by 1xBet so long as it's got some footprint on social media. So sponsor anything, even if it's the proceeds of crime like illegal streaming is, sponsor it. Why not? Okay, we've got a massive audience from this stuff. So this is an organization that basically it's in their lifeblood to just keep moving, keep eating, keep feeding, keep finding new territory. It's the worst kind of beast out there because it basically rolls out, dominates everywhere. Anything you say about them in terms of legal, illegal, they'll just be like, oh, we have a license here, like they've got one in Brazil recently, okay? And many governments will be on that point where it's kind of like, if you look at the problem of who's taking the money from our marketplace, legal or illegal, 1xBet will be up there in the top 3 brands. generally in most countries you go to. Okay. So for a licensing regime like Brazil, I'd appreciate you're going to be on your knees kind of going, maybe we have to just license these guys because they're 30% of the marketplace. So maybe we have to license them just because otherwise you're leaving the biggest elephant outside the room. And you
Yeah.
kind of have to do something about it. So there's a piece here, which is, can you kill them? And if you can't kill them, maybe you have to convert them. So
Mm,
OneXBet is one of these, as I said, legacy illegal brands that's at that tipping point in its own evolution, I think, where it's like maybe their future is wanting to convert and become more legal. Right behind them, however, are hundreds of wannabe OneXBets. Okay. BC.game, for example. So BC Games, sponsors of Leicester City recently. These guys are basically going out there to say, we want to be that company. BC Game was thrown out of Curacao, okay, at the end of last year. So they had a Curacao license. Curacao said, heard a whole bunch of noise about this company, and Curacao were like, okay, maybe we should look into this company, and maybe we should do something because the Dutch government's all over Curacao. Curacao being part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands officially since 2010. So Curaçao's basically kind of getting a lot of heat politically,
yeah.
and they're like, okay, the Dutch keep hassling us about this. We need to do something about this. BC Game was one of these companies that was just beyond the pale in the nature of its operations. So everybody around the world, there were just fires going off everywhere during 2024. Problems with this company, whole bunch of abuse, whole bunch of gambling addicts playing on it, whole bunch of kids playing on it, just scandal after scandal. BC Game decided to deal with this by basically going, okay, the press release is coming out on Monday from the Curacao government and the gaming regulator. We're going to put a press release out on a Saturday, and we've got great social media footprint. So we're going to say Curacao has a hostile gambling regime. So screw you guys. We don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
So they left. And you've never seen that kind of beyond the pale criminal behavior before.
Yeah.
Now that brand, BC.game, is not licensed anywhere in the world, not even in one
Uh-huh.
of these kind of euphemism license places. And
Okay.
I kind of liken this to like, you're using that license to cover the genitals of your criminal shame. It's all
Yeah.
that these licenses are good for. And
Yeah.
that's what BC Game did. And then they came out with this press release at the end, just before Christmas, saying, we want nothing to do with Curacao. They're hostile. They're crazy people. It's like,
Huh.
oh my goodness. So we've gone out of the room here to a place where these people are literally willing to be brazenly lie and just go,
Yeah.
we want nothing to do with you. But they're not
Wow.
licensed anywhere else. So BC Game is literally, OneXBet wouldn't even do that. OneXBet always wanted at least the touchstone of, we're licensed somewhere.
Hmm.
That doesn't
Hmm.
mean you're clean. It just means we've got something we can kind of go, look, it's a license. It's amazing. What
Okay.
DC Game decided we don't even need that anymore. And it kind of worked because what's happened for them, they're still operating everywhere. They're still making their criminal money, but nobody's saying anything about it. So
Yeah.
YieldSec obviously works with stakeholders across the gambling piece, legal stakeholders. We help them make the money they should. Stop being stolen from is the main thing
Yeah.
here. And this is what I look at this thing and just call it, this era we're living in is the great illegal gambling robbery.
Yeah.
Everyone is in the illegal gambling business. It's just stealing from you. And what, do you like it? Do you like being stolen from? Because normally we'd be like, oh, I can't go to that part of town anymore. I can't do the things I was doing that made me a victim of crime. And what you were saying earlier about, do I have to, when I look for illegal gambling, do I have to be looking in the bad part of town, bad part of the internet? Do I need to go to the dark web? No, not at all. This stuff is in plain sight all the
Yeah.
time. So when
Yeah.
you look at something like the Taylor Swift conversation on 2 years running of Super Bowl now, that literally hijacked an American religious event almost, is the way I
Yeah.
see the Super Bowl
Yeah.
from Britain. The way that Americans love the Super Bowl, love the NFL, every single game in the NFL season is like it's like a heavyweight contest of the world. So you have a really short, concentrated sports cycle, and one form of crime was able to completely hijack that for the last 2 years via the means of exploiting Taylor Swift and
Yeah.
her kind of proximity to the event. So they made it all about fun betting, but that fun betting takes you to dark places when you end up with illegal gambling.
So outside of where OneXBet is accessible and where it's located, I'm curious. I'm looking at the website, and I think I do a lot of animation in these videos. I want to kind of give people something to visualize, and I'm visualizing this OneXBet website as kind of this ecosystem. You have slots. You have regular sports betting. I can bet on PSG versus Liverpool or whatever. Those seem to me, apart from where the website's located or whatever, those seem to be like kind of legitimate things to bet on. Are there products on OneXBet that are illegal? That if OneXBet were to say we want to be a completely legal casino, they wouldn't be allowed to take bets on?
So that's a very good question. So look, in terms of So we touched on VPN point, which I wanted to finish on as well. So VPN, just let me finish on the VPN point for you, okay? VPNs generally, you're using that because you're a journalist, okay? And
Yeah.
you're thinking, how do I get access to the site to get screen grabs and show people? You don't need to do any of that. This stuff is all available on mirrors and redirects. So just try
Okay.
1x slots, 1x Lite, okay? Or go to any of the social media platforms and type in 1xBet and see what you get back. You'll get a whole
Okay.
bunch of results that link you there via the advertising, okay?
Okay.
Go to some affiliate sites. So go to things like casino.org, go to any of those things and find where are the lists for these things. Casino.org might well, as a publicly traded company in the US, may not be featuring links for 1xBet, but you'll generally find that once you get into the affiliate investigation of that community, there'll be affiliates who are promoting legals and affiliates who promote legals and illegals or just illegals only.
Okay.
VPN use for consumers. If I'm a gambler and I'm using any of today's popular gambling products, so that's live sports betting and live dealer casino. Those are your two peak kind of crown jewel products, okay? Those bring in most of your money, most of your customers, most of your revenue will come from those, okay? If I use a VPN with those products, I am screwed. You won't be able to get your bet on because a VPN adds latency. Latency means time. Time is not what you have when you're gambling. So if I'm trying to get on the next spin of a roulette wheel that's being played live, don't use a VPN. You can't.
Okay.
Okay. If I'm trying to bet live on sports and it's about the next basket that's going to be scored by the LA Lakers, I will not get my bet on. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fundamentally frustrates customers. So VPN use died for gambling about 8, 9
Okay.
years ago. Okay. So nobody needs to use that stuff. And illegal gambling understood that. Don't even try. Because 10 years ago, you'd see tons of affiliate and adverts for illegal gambling companies who would give you a free subscription to a VPN.
Right.
It doesn't exist anymore. Okay.
Okay.
VPNs you don't need to use. Mirrors and redirects exist to get you there. So the whole point of this is where are these sites based? They're based everywhere. So there will be mirrors and redirects of sites all over the world at all the internet hub points. If I'm an organization like 1xBet and BC Game, I will be everywhere that the hub points are to make sure I can get audience to my products immediately. Now, in terms of content and the games that people like playing. So yes, they love playing slots. Yes, they love playing live sports betting. Okay. And they also love playing, electronic games too, which is just you versus a computer game version of blackjack and stuff with random number generators behind it. If I'm an illegal gambling company, you as a consumer don't know if any of that stuff is real. Okay.
Yeah.
We've seen illegal gambling companies running things like the illegal streaming of Fury versus Usyk, the two heavyweight boxing contests of the world last year. Illegal streaming brought you the fight because it cost $75 to watch it on TNT otherwise. Okay. Most people don't have that kind of money just lying around. So people got the fight free from illegal streaming, courtesy of illegal gambling. Open an account with one of our illegal gambling partners. You can watch for free in full HD kind of thing, with the logo scrubbed out for TNT and Sky Sports and everybody else kind of thing. So, which is horrendous that even the advertising gets changed on the canvas of the ring. They even have video layering software now where they can basically say, we'll put an illegal gambling brand on the canvas rather than the official sponsor, whether that was Budweiser or whoever. We'll put an illegal gambling brand there. Same thing in the World Cup, same thing in the Euros recently we saw as well, that they're overlaying advertising on the illegal streams. So if I'm using illegal streaming to get me that audience, we noticed that some of those illegal streams were running with delays, Sam. So some of the fight footage was a minute, 90 seconds delayed from the live broadcast. They were still offering you betting on stuff that they knew the outcome of. Okay. So they knew that somebody went down in the third round. They were still offering you betting, asking if it was going to happen, and you could still place those bets. So illegal gambling now understands you might be able to convince consumers that what you're watching illegally, the stream you're watching, leads you into a whole area now where you trust us so much, you'll be convinced about putting bets on, even though in the real world, those things have already happened.
Okay.
So they know the outcomes of those things. So there's a whole area here where people are interested in. I want to get to the biggest audience possible because the dumber the consumer, the more money I'll make out of them.
Right.
The less familiar they are with these products. Live sports betting is like a roulette wheel on a sports event that's taking place in real time.
Yeah.
If I don't know what I'm doing about how many yellow cards will there be, how many penalties will there be, how many red, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with these bets.
Yeah.
Will the next free kick go left or right of the goalkeeper? All this kind of stuff. So if you're interested in sports and you're following those things, there's just a great gambling product, a risk management product. If you're just a random punter who came in via illegal streaming, who came in via social media, you're not educated in this stuff at all. And that's a problem, okay? And illegal gambling exploits that.
So I want to get to these kind of weird live stream sports. I was just on the other day. Obviously, they're pretty easy to find on 1xBet. Obviously, if you just go lower on the menu, you
Yeah.
can. I found these 2-on-2 soccer games, these almost ping pong games. I saw this game yesterday. Bellingcat hadn't even seen it. It was basketball on ice skates, so it was called Frostball. Um, and it was, I mean, it was bizarre. I mean, on the bright side, the guys look like they're kind of having fun. In most of these games, the guys do not look like they're having fun. I'm curious. You've seen these before. Before we
Yes.
get into what they serve, what's your impression of them? Were you surprised to see them on something like 1xBet?
So just to put this in context, we were the first people to call this out. So YieldSec monitors everything around the world. So any form of gambling content, we're looking at it. We have AI, machine learning, and expert human teams looking at this stuff. When this first came up a few years ago for us, two things. Okay, team were coming to me and saying things like Barbara Streisand's a really popular bet at the moment. And I was like, "Okay, you guys, this must be a. We get lots of false positives we have to look at because obviously words like bet are used billions of times a minute.
Sure.
It's like
Sure.
when somebody says, I bet you I can eat more Nathan's hot dogs than you. There might be gambling on that, but it's also just people challenging each other.
Yeah.
When we started noticing the Barbara Streisand thing, finally I looked at it because my mother was a big Barbara Streisand fan, and I was like, what is all this Barbara Streisand thing? And Barbara Streisand is like a saint to me after like a Star is Born and stuff. So I was like, what's all this betting on Barbara Streisand? Why? She's like an old lady now. It's like they're betting on when she's going to die. So this was coming up on predictor marketplaces. So what we call celebrity death pool bets were on there, kind of thing. So these always flame up massively after there's any death, like the guy from Friends last year, Matthew Perry. Was it Matthew Perry? The guy from Friends, when he died, that these markets go through the roof. So there's a whole area there where they're exploiting this proximity to celebrities or sports events to basically drag in huge audiences from social media. And the other point here in terms of content and the amateur sports. So during that pandemic period, when we lost all professional sports, okay, we should also have lost all amateur sports, but we didn't because of these farms that started popping up. These farms have always been there, okay? They're supplying a certain type of content. So we'd seen this right at the beginning of YieldSec back in 2020 when we were first started looking around, monitoring various marketplaces and trying to collect content and say, okay, how can we build a system with AI tech and expert humans to monitor this, assess it effectively? We were finding this stuff coming out of places like the Far East for things like cockfighting, chicken fighting, effectively. Okay, so we were finding that even though these sports were banned legally in the countries, it was popping up in places like Vietnam and Thailand. This stuff was existing still, and it had gone into an underground place of even if you had. So there'd be a land-based premises that's offering bare knuckles boxing or offering cockfighting, and now it's basically all streaming to the internet as well. So people realize there is some heavy market betting on this stuff, so we can make money here. So people started taking that content, and then the pandemic hit, and now that content was up there as okay. Well, this is like the Euros of soccer just got cancelled, so let's have the World Championship of Cockfighting instead. Let's see if we can film that because we can do it in a car park and nobody's there and we can just get some webcams and it's ready. So you notice that immediately there was this weaponization of amateur sports that became really relevant during the pandemic, 2020, 21, 22. Then we came out of the lockdown and sports came back. And now you had a much bigger audience who were all willing to believe the lie, basically, that came from illegal gambling because they'd been living that lie for the last 2 years and betting on this stuff, winning and losing, you were getting paid. The thing that then happened was the illegal gambling went, the whole point of why we invested in that period, the whole point of why we recruited in that period, not knowing that the pandemic would end, the whole point of why we did any of this, cross-sell the customer immediately into casino, into poker, into predictors, into new products. We now see more proliferation of new products coming from illegal gambling first, because legal gambling has got its hands tied behind its back all the time in terms of if I even want a new product, I need to go and talk to the regulator. The regulator will sit on their hands for ages because generally their job is what? Just police the marketplace, make sure the legals pay their taxes, make sure things are good, there's no scandals involving gambling addiction and children, and everything's fine. Yeah. Legal gambling regulators aren't there to basically go, oh, well, we're here to innovate the industry. That's not their job, okay? They're not interested in that. But it's become a lot harder to go through the door of predictors, for example. So predictors are just coin toss bets on anything. They started on FTX and Binance 7-8 years ago as FTX and Binance are obviously in the business of selling and converting fiat money into cryptocurrency and then getting you to believe a whole bunch of crap about how you might be a trader or Gordon Gekko kind of thing. So why don't you do all these things and use our software to help you make money? But then they realized that, okay, people are a bit bored of this because when they realize that they're not a stockbroker and they realize they don't have the training or the attention span for this stuff and they're not making money, they lapse. So what brought them back was user-generated content. When will Barbara Streisand die? What will happen in the NFL? Will Trump get elected? So all these coin toss bets and then selling them as, oh, you're not gambling, you're trading, you're investing, you're taking care of business. So you
Hmm.
convinced a bunch of young men that this, they'd argue with their girlfriends over, I'm not gambling. I'm taking care of the family. This is investing. This is something
Hmm.
serious. And because it's got a lot of line graphs and all this kind of crap with it, you kind of think, hey, I'm like a master of the universe. I'm like Warren Buffett. You're not, okay?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was convincing. Illegal gambling saw that and went, me likey. So they jumped right
Yeah.
on top of this one. So they basically took this stuff from FTX and Binance. And again, bear in mind with FTX, when that scandal occurred and the firm collapsed, 15% of their value, if you look at the court filings, was tied up in predictor products. So they realized, those financial platforms, the fintech platforms, they realized this is incendiary kind of clickbait content that will keep them coming back. So whereas we can sell them currency conversion into Bitcoin and stuff once a month if we're lucky. We can sell them trading on a stock once a quarter, but we can sell them these predictor bets 20 times a day. That's
Okay.
the thing that kept them coming back. Same way that social media grew out of what? Once you got bored with social media and watching things like all the people I used to go out with, all the friends I don't have anymore from high school and stuff, you got bored of it. So what did the Facebook do? Bought Zynga and gave you Farmville, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Words with Friends and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So it's just a form of how do I get loyalty out of the audience? Well, you used to like her when she was 14 years old. Now she's fat and old, the same as you are. And now you can play Farmville with her. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And cryptocurrency did exactly the same thing. It was nobody's really that interested in this stuff in their core, okay, unless they're a crypto pro. But
Yeah.
how do you get the mass market here? Give them betting. So that's what
So can
predictive bets are.
connect that to these sports betting farms for me. Is it connect that feeling? Like, what are they? Are you saying that these sports are actually just kind of more addicting to get people back in?
It's having what they realized during the pandemic, all illegal gambling realized, if when you lose real sports content, professional sports content, you need to replace it with something else because the audience just want something. So any form of content works. So having amateur sports, it works at two levels now. Having amateur sports replace filled the vacuum that was left when professional sports was cancelled during the pandemic. Then amateur sports became this new learning that they got from it was people want to feel professional about betting. People want to feel safe about their betting. And people also want to have that justification and legitimization bullshit that we all convince ourselves of when a wife or girlfriend tells us, darling, we haven't made the mortgage payment this month. And you want to go, well, I haven't been gambling. That's the last thing you want to be accused of. Also, you never want to be accused of gambling. Why? Because now in Western regimes, if you're getting divorced or something, if somebody accuses you of having gambled, you're no good with money anymore. You're going to get the financial settlement finding against you because of it. In some countries like the UK, if you've ever gambled, it will go against you on a loan application, on a mortgage application and stuff. So some places you don't want to be seen as gambling. So they had to put a new legitimization and justification term on it. So trading became that name. Okay. And that's what predictors do. Predictors are telling you that they're not really gambling. They are basically financial futures, is what they are. So everybody's believing that, yeah, I'm going to get my braces and slick my hair back and I'm Michael Douglas in Wall Street now. You're not, okay?
Yeah.
But everyone's willing to believe this stuff, and illegal gambling is selling it to you as that stuff, okay? So they're trying to convince you that all this stuff exists. On the amateur sports piece, why does that exist now? So amateur sports filled the vacuum during the pandemic, had some content for people. I don't believe, and from our monitoring, much of that was making anybody much money, but the learning that came from it was interesting. The learning that came from it was, again, any form of content converts. So get any form of content out there, okay? Steal it, make it, film whatever you can, and make it into something that's gamified. Make it into something that's basically got betting opportunities on it. but it's like a what happens next or a spot the ball contest in a newspaper from the 1950s. This is the modern equivalent of that, effectively.
Okay.
So any amateur sports content was interesting, but now's where you go through the dark circle of it. Okay. So any amateur sports content might be interesting. Snail racing from Thailand, 14-year-old girls basketball from Ukraine. And that's the thing that's interesting here, because they realized social media content, if it's sexy, if it bleeds, if it's funny, you'll get conversion. Okay. The 14-year-old girls basketball from Ukraine is disgusting because it's funny. It's kind of weirdly sexy at some points because all the outfits they tend to wear are way too tight for those girls who are all blossoming through puberty. And it bleeds because in the background, you could see artillery dropping from the Russians.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my goodness. So they've hit this unholy trinity with that kind of content where they're going, now we'll offer betting on this stuff. Is the betting coming from it making tons of money for them? Not really, Sam. What's coming from, because we see that there's interesting audience conversion from social and peer-to-peer communications, Telegram, WhatsApp, and Signal. There's interesting conversion, tons. There's a mass market audience coming through to see these things, but it's clickbait. But the problem is once they get there, they see a little bit of 14-year-old girls basketball, a little bit of snail racing, then they'll move on. But now you've registered an account, and also you have been scalped as a customer. So the fact you clicked on that thing, your data's been collected. You will now find that everything you see from now on is infected by the people in that illegal gambling world who are wanting you as a customer. So it's like it's like you've literally been possessed by illegal gambling ghosts and you don't know how to be exercised because how do you get rid of that stuff?
So these betting farms are kind of like the vacuum. Like it's really just to hoover people up. It's not going to generate a ton of money. It doesn't even, so that explains why they aren't very good games. Like none of these guys look all that excited to play.
They're paid.
Is it just
generally, all of those things are paid. So we've again from YieldSec collecting all the content here, we find evidence of would you like to earn $20 an hour kind of thing. Not that it's ever much. It's more in most countries when they're doing it. It's like, would you like to earn $2 an hour just to play soccer, just to play basketball, just to do this?
Yeah, could you describe a little bit about how these operations work?
So all of this stuff is basically peer-to-peer communications driven, okay? So somebody will contact you and they'll be saying, okay, a lot of these things that you'll get for text messages on, would you like a job kind of thing? It's for stuff like this. They'll go around all of the sports leagues and teams and find the grassroots level where they'll get the children from, come and play these games. We've seen evidence from the Far East of collecting groups of street kids in places like Thailand and Vietnam and basically just hoovering them up and saying, right, you guys get into this sports hall and you just got to play soccer or ping pong or volleyball for the next 3 hours, okay? And it's all webcammed up. So they're basically recruiting people from whatever bad circumstances you're in. You can get out of it by your $2 an hour, 20 cents an hour, whatever they're paying to do this. So everybody who's playing their sports is generally paid. And it's interesting that you mentioned that all the people in these amateur sports seem happy. Do you ever see professional sports players looking that happy? They earn a ton of money and they're not happy. It's because they're told to look happy. If they don't look happy, they get either don't get paid. And at the worst end of this, when you're looking at some of the horrific stuff that came out of places like again, the Far East generally, where some of the scandals of like 3,000 person slave farms that have been found there in Myanmar, where they're basically running entire studio facilities for illegal streaming of sports. So they're basically making up their own sports events. There is no real league here that exists. It's just a whole bunch of people that we've put together. We put some logos up on the wall to make it look semi-official. OneXBet are masters at that on their amateur feeds. It all looks like it's semi-official. Stuff from Ukraine, stuff from Myanmar, wherever they're getting their content from. Even the snail racing years ago, it had logos all the way around the edges. Obviously, people always laugh when I mention this, but the snail racing stuff was really well done because you can use a tiny, web camera is perfect for it. It's a fisheye lens. You put it on the track, and then this snail moves along after being made to drink a bunch of Coca-Cola. So it was insane. But again, people found it funny, but it created that thing of it's not about the betting on this stuff. It's any content converts. That's the point of this stuff.
And you mentioned that the ultimate goal is to get these guys up into casinos and stuff, higher paying. Do you have any simple numbers for me? What's the margin of profit for betting on a sports bet versus a casino?
Really easy. So sports bets customers generally win on sports, okay? Most customers aren't stupid. gambling customer generally is a smart person, okay? They're willing to take risk on stuff and they also have money. So, sports betting on favorites generally, because that's what you'll read about in newspapers and on social media, you'll bet the favorites and they favorites tend to win unless the results go against customers. But most of the time, results go for customers, okay? So, you're lucky if you're making a single digit percentage profit margin on sports betting. 8-9% is about the average, okay? Blend that up, now you're in a whole area where you can double, treble your money kind of thing. So generally, as a gambling company, you're looking for a small amount of profit, regular, often, frequent play kind of thing. So as a gambling company, if I'm only sports betting, I'm lucky to make money. I'm lucky if I'm in business at the end of each year. One event could bankrupt the company. When I started in the gambling industry, I started it for a firm called Ladbrokes in the United Kingdom in 2000. And basically, I was reminded daily, if this goes against us, this special offer that I was a marketing guy, if this special offer you're trying to push goes against us on the horse racing, on the football, the whole company's bust. Okay. And that was one of the largest bookmakers in the country with 3,000 shops. So we went from that retail into online. I was one of the first people to be part of that. So we understood very clearly, don't run a legitimate, clean, good operation with good customer service and great offers and great products and, really support your customers. Because again, this product is something that you can alienate immediately when you start losing money. So it's not like any other business in the world that when you start saying that, okay, the business we're in is you versus me, and when you win, I have to pay you, and when I win, you have to leave your money behind. It's not easy to explain that to company. And they walk out with what? Nothing, basically. So the whole business is an illusion, and that illusion is something that customers want to engage in because you can make a lot of money from it. So on sports, lucky if you're making a single-digit percentage profit margin. On casino, you can go into double, treble your money now. So you're in that nosebleed territory here of if you get customers to believe in the product on casino for long enough, you will make substantial money from them. So some casino products can run as high as a 50% margin, okay? But not for long because no one's going to be losing, $1 out of every two they spend. Nobody's going to sustain that kind of loss for long. So
interesting.
Go on.
So having both keeps them inside, right? I'm someone I go, man, I'm really good at this sports betting stuff. I'm going to do casinos. And then at some point I go, I'm really bad at this casino thing. I'm better at the sports betting thing. It kind of keeps me inside the whole time.
For your average customer, what you want, and again, I've been somebody that operated this stuff in my past. I didn't have some religious conversion or something to make me go, oh, it's all evil. I don't think gambling's evil at all. I think it's a great product. It's really entertaining. It's lots of fun for the right people at the right time in the right amount of money that they want to spend. If you can afford it, go for your life and spend what you want on this stuff, okay? It's great fun, and nobody in the world is offering you 10 times your money on anything. Okay, look at the world right now. If I could put money in a bank account, what would I make? 2-3% if I'm lucky. If I could put money in US Treasury bills, I might make 8% if I'm lucky right now. Okay, nobody's offering me 10x my money. That's why gambling exists. Okay, it's not because it's too good to be true. When it's run correctly, everybody benefits from this business, okay? And that's the whole point of legal gambling, the whole point of why this stuff exists, why YieldTech even exists. I set this company up so that legal stakeholders make the money they should, okay? And everyone does, the taxpayer does, so does the community, and consumers get paid when they win. If illegal gambling exists, it's just feeding and feeding and feeding off the stuff that should be providing for our societies, providing for our commerce. Now, as a gambling company, you want to have cross-sell because you need that cross-fertilization. A customer can win on sports and then lose a little bit on casino and then play poker and win again. So it's just an up and down sine wave, and it's beautiful as a business then. If you run businesses properly, I remember at the peak of my kind of operating career, I remember running PokerStars, and we got it to a really high level of market share globally. And it was just customers win a bit, lose a bit, win a bit, lose a bit for years, okay? And nobody had gambling problems either. So it was like you could see great behavior coming from it. And the idea of hobby play was a reality at that point of that business. When you bring cross-sell in, you can also sustain that. And customers go, okay, well, I'm getting a bit bored of playing poker. Or I want something else to do. Poker playing generally, I spent a big part of my operating career in it. But there are points in a poker game where there's 9 other people at the table. It's like watching paint dry, waiting for everybody to post and fold and stuff. So having blackjack there, having slots there, having sports betting there, it's just another thing to do. And that's the whole business. Now, when you prohibit cross-sell, as America generally has, America's taken this view that it's like the fable of the 3 little pigs in America. So if you build your house from straw, the big bad wolf is going to come and eat you up. If you build your house from sticks, the big bad wolf will huff and puff and blow your house down. If you build your house from bricks, you're safe, kind of thing. Now, in America, what they've done, California is a state that built its house from straw, basically. You've got no legal online gaming products, and you're just going like this. We're not interested. We're not interested. We can't do anything about it because the tribes are complaining and commercial racetracks are complaining. Nobody wants online gaming because they're all worried about being cannibalized, is what they call it in America. That the retail trade is worried that online gaming is going to cannibalize it. Sorry, guys, but I have news for you. You've been cannibalized for 3 decades by illegal gambling. It's already happened. It's been going on for forever. So everybody looks at it and says, one, no legal products, build your house from straw. One legal product, which is most of America, 38 states, one legal product means you built your house from sticks. So you've got legal sports betting in most places now, 38 states out of 50, and it's making some money, okay? And it's also producing some taxation. But the firms are not making money, the legal ones. Why? Because they can't compete with a shadow industry that hides in plain sight and is more available than they are. And when you, as a customer in New York, okay, New York only has sports betting legally. If I'm in New York and I see an offer from DraftKings, FanDuel, legal firms, they have to pay 51% tax on all stakes. So for every $10 bet, $5.10 goes to the state of New York immediately, which is wonderful for New York. You're making a ton of money in taxation, okay? But it's not real, okay? It's a marketplace lie, this thing. So the firms aren't making money. They're publicly traded and they want to stay in New York because it is the biggest gambling marketplace in America right now. Generally, when you look at Yieldsec numbers, we show the total marketplace. New York is a runaway train of gambling growth, okay? Wow. But all of it's illegal because as a customer, I want the one-stop shop. I want the home of choice and convenience. I want to be able to win a bit on sports betting and lose a bit on sports betting and then get a $50 free chip for slots machines play. Why not? And illegal gambling gives you all that choice. So you're leaving on the table in America by having one product and thinking, okay, we're going to build a house of gambling and make tons of money. You're not, because illegal gambling has become the home of gambling for Americans because it has cross-sell. Customers want it and demand it, and you're not giving it to them.
So I got a couple more questions to zoom out, but you've touched on this a little bit. But so we've established these farms, the purpose of these kind of strange amateur sports events. But from what I hear you say, 1xBet is by far not the only gambling website that has these live streams on it. How common is it in illegal gambling?
It's extremely common in illegal gambling. And again, bear in mind one feature of the gambling industry of both shades, legal and illegal. All gambling companies, basically, it's a risk-based endeavor, okay? So I want to take as little risk as possible as a gambling company. I want to invest as little as possible, and I want to get everything brought in, and I want to pay people from revenue because I don't have CapEx to invest at the beginning. So I don't have a huge treasure chest that I can go, okay, I'm going to invest in this business. I'm going to set up sports trading abilities. I'm going to set up slot machines. You buy it from other people. You license it from other people. Let's be clear. You don't buy it from other people. You license it from other people. So all of your advertising, license it, pay people off revenue because they're affiliates who get paid when you get paid. So if I'm an affiliate, I'm referring you, Sam, as a customer. You're looking around for the best sports betting in America. I say, here's a site all about the best sports betting companies in America. You click on one of those links. I get $20 for you clicking on it. And then I get 50% share of your revenue for your lifetime as a customer in the future. That's the point of that business. So you're buying off revenue. Same with the games. Games companies who give you games, slot machines, even the trading and odds will come from a software supplier, okay? So there'll be a technical platform provider, software and games provider behind all of the products that you sell. So most gambling companies are literally just a shell, okay? Everything is licensed in and then sold to the customers. So these farms and the amateur sports feeds that we're talking about, it's not just 1xBet. They were the innovator in that area. Okay, they definitely blazed that trail. During the pandemic, when professional sports disappeared, that's when the seeds of this got planted. Now, those amateur sports things are farms for thousands of online gambling companies. So it's not just them. You'll see the same feeds that you see on 1xBet in many places. You'll see the same feeds that you see on BC Game in many places. Same games exist as well. So you're realizing here that, again, illegal gambling understood during the pandemic. We're all, as a group of people, legal and illegal gambling, were all being pushed to the margin then, because if you only had casino, it's not something that customers will stay with for long enough, and customers won't believe in it for long enough. And there isn't a reason that you wake up every day and go, I want to play slots today and I want to play that slot right now. Whereas in a
Hmm.
sports betting, no one's asking you in the street, in a bar, in your relationship, what do you think about the new Buffalo game of slots? What do you think about
Yeah.
this? No one's having
Yeah.
those conversations generally.
No.
But
Yeah.
everyone's asking you, will Taylor Swift be at the Super Bowl? Will she be
Yeah.
pregnant? Will she be married? Everyone's
So they're
asking
just
what's happening in the NFL.
they feel like more like real life. That's the
Yeah,
selling point, right? Yeah. So there are tons of companies doing this, and I want to get to the soccer a little bit because
yeah.
there's this amazing graphic that shows this year like something like 75% of shirt sponsors are gambling companies now. How does a company like 1xBet get on the shirt of Barcelona or PSG?
So during that period, look, so all illegal gambling makes a higher profit margin than everything else because even when it's bets minus customer winnings equals GGR or gross gaming revenue for these companies, that's what turnover is to a gambling company. 1xBet's making more out of every dollar because don't pay tax, very low licensing costs, no responsible gaming, and you don't care. Is the other thing. So you don't need to be out there like a publicly traded company who's kind of going, oh, we feel bad for gamblers and we're going to give some money to a gambling addiction charity. You don't do any of that kind of stuff. So all your
Yeah.
money is, again, one point I make to people around the world about this. When crime makes money, what does crime do with money? More
Yeah.
crime. Okay. That's the business. So it
Yeah.
doesn't invest in 401ks and pensions, doesn't invest in the community, more crime all the time. Okay. So the more content I can get, the more stuff I can get, the more audience I can get, the more I build a war chest for my future. That war chest is 1xBet basically. So now, how do I legitimize and justify myself as a company? The same way that you provide excuses for your customers to legitimize and justify their behavior. I don't want to be called a thief. Okay, is what any of these illegal gambling people are in the game of. So when I first started speaking about this, I remember being on. I got invited to give a keynote speech in Vegas in 2022 when we first launched commercially. Somebody came up and like grabbed my jacket sleeve just before I got on stage. Massive room, thousands of people watching this speech about because I had a reputation already at that point, and this guy doesn't muck around. He's the legal
Hmm.
versus illegal guy. And that's when I first got there. Everyone was kind of going, "Was the legal versus illegal guys here?" No one even knew my name at that point, but it was. I remember somebody stopped me before going on stage and they were like, could you not say that stuff about legal versus illegal? Could you say unlicensed and unregulated and unregistered? And I was like, who are you? And he was a
Yeah.
lawyer from some law firm in New York, and he'd basically been paid to come and see me to say, "Don't say this shit, okay? It's bad for you,
Wow.
bad for your family." And I just went, "It doesn't quite have the same ring as legal versus illegal, so
It
no, I'm not going
doesn't.
to shut my mouth. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
registered with blah blah, all these
Yeah.
words and flapping my lips. It just didn't sound right. So I just said, no, I'm not going to do that." So I went on stage, gave my speech, and we went kind of viral then that everybody was talking about, okay, these guys are able to see what's going on in the marketplace. They're not having to hack anything. There's no data protection breaches. They're just being smart and looking at things from above and going, where is the audience? Where's their activity? Look at it over time and estimate how the money's being spent. So when you look at any of these companies, they have built up so much money because they don't pay tax. They don't pay the normal costs of business. Okay. They license everything in from everybody. Okay. And it has a corrupting influence on things because now you've got sports events that are these even real amateur sports or were they just made to be broadcast on some stream for 1xBet and thousands of other companies who feature this content online now, all of whom are in the illegal gambling game. Okay. All of them are. So why isn't that amateur sports content being featured by DraftKings and FanDuel? Because it's probably not very good and no one's demanding it. And why would you spend money on this stuff? Because it's slightly weird and predatory and strange. That's why that stuff exists, is any content converts. Illegal gambling understood that lesson completely. Okay. They now own nose to tail the means of achieving that as a reality for their audiences. Okay. And their audience is exactly the same as legal gambling's, which is why this is all theft. These people aren't licensed and registered to do these businesses. They exist in plain sight and they steal from everything. So it's worse than parasiting because these people are literally mugging everybody, including consumers. So all of this stuff that exists, all of the 14-year-old girls basketball, all of the snail racing, all of the Indian Premier League cricket kind of like side games and stuff that exist, because that's another thing. I remember one example of that popped up on cricket. One example of it popped up during the pandemic where people in Britain and America were betting on cricket games because they thought that in India they'd believed this completely made up story that in India, the Indian Premier League of Cricket had been quarantined and they were still playing all of their games, but it was just fake. They used some video graphics and stuff, and they
Oh
used
my
a
God.
bunch of like young people to basically play in stadiums where they put a bunch of empty stadiums. They just put a bunch of lighting in and made it look real. But nobody knew what the Indian Premier League was. They'd never bet on it before, but it looked like it was still going on. So it's easy to deceive and lie to consumers about this stuff. And those amateur sports events are doing that stuff at scale. And the other piece of this that I didn't mention before, the other piece of that amateur sports stuff is just like the predictor stuff, where you're trying to convince the audience that you're a trader, you're different, you know these products, you're like a Gordon Gekko or a Warren Buffett, you understand finance and economics. As you've seen in the world in the past few days, nobody understands economics. All this tariff
Yeah.
stuff has just brought the world to a standstill in a few days,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So nobody has an inside track on this stuff. And no matter how well trained you are or professional, you can't understand the nature of chaos. You can just try and work with it sometimes. Those sports events and the amateur stuff, it may be more interesting to certain consumers because they can feel like if I watch it enough, the same way that you get people telling you nowadays things like, they watch enough YouTube videos and they kind of feel like they've done a degree or something. It creates
Yeah.
this idea of I'm educated in it. I've done my research and my investigations. When you look at professional sports, maybe you feel like I don't know enough about it and it's all a bit rigged as a game because it's all about the people who own the NFL and the big athletes and the stars and those guys. But this amateur stuff, if you watch it enough, do you get convinced that maybe I'm an expert in it now? Maybe people start feeling that too. So I think the more niche you can make the content, you'll get a certain type of customer, not scale of volume of money coming from this, but you'll get a certain type of customer who gets very particular about I'm really good at that cockfighting stuff. I'm really good at
Yeah.
snail racing and children's basketball. I'm really great at all that stuff. So I want more of that content because you feel safer with it. You feel like you're a pundit, an expert on this kind of stuff.
This ice hockey basketball game, I figured it out. Like I'm an expert, right?
Yeah, you're basically you're self training and giving yourself a self fulfilling outcome. But it's like one
Yeah.
example of early internet stuff I remember hearing. Like I remember being in an Uber about a decade ago, and a taxi driver was telling me I was sitting to how's your day and all this kind of stuff. He goes, "Well, I'm not a taxi driver. This is not what I do most of the time." I was like, "Oh, really? What's your normal job?" He goes, "Well, I'm like a history professor, really." I was like, "I'm sorry." I
Oh
said,
no.
that must be an interesting story. How did you end up as a history professor?" And he was like, I said, "Where did you study?" He goes, "Oh, no, it's all YouTube." So you
Oh
realize that
no.
people are willing to be convinced by this stuff. And I
Yeah.
think there's something in that with this amateur sports stuff where some people who've been losing money on professional sports betting of professional sports events now think, okay, maybe this amateur stuff I've got an edge in because I can know more about it than other people because it doesn't have all the ESPN anchors. It doesn't have all the Fox Sports guys. It doesn't have MSNBC telling me that I must be crazy to believe these
Hmm.
things because it's not real. And it doesn't have the athletes on X and Twitter and all the social media telling me that I must be stupid also. I want to have an opinion about something and I'm willing to believe the lie. So there's part of this, which is also the audience having been given this content and having maybe won money on it, maybe thinking, oh, it's more fair. It's not like the rig stuff when it's professional. So there's
More
part of this
authentic.
that illegal gambling is also playing on to kind of make sure have that content because it makes it seem like, well, as one expert, we're just the home of all sports. Amateur, professional, we don't care. It's about
Mhm.
your opinion. And that's almost taking that Fox News position of we report, you decide. It's an
Yeah.
interesting shift that they've done there. So
Do
illegal
your own
gambling,
research. Yeah.
yeah, illegal gambling's got that point where it's like, no, you're the expert, not us. And that's exactly what Fox News did to kind of convince a massive
Yeah.
part of the audience. It's not about having to have an editorial position like CNN do or the Washington Post used to. It's now about let the audience decide what they want to decide, okay? So long
Yeah.
as they keep watching and keep watching the TV ads, we're happy. We're making money, aren't we? And illegal gambling kind of got in that room too, of just give them whatever they want, okay? Any kind of product, and basically show them whatever kind of sports. Let them do whatever they want to. Let them make it what they want. And predictors showed you that it worked, didn't it? Because all this
Hmm.
audience-generated content with predictors doing things like Barbara Streisand dying, Taylor Swift being pregnant, what color lipstick. It's insanity when you look at those
Hmm.
marketplaces that there is an insane feeding frenzy around. As from Taylor Swift's perspective, the way that she was used by illegal gambling is disgusting to me. Absolutely
Yeah.
shocking to have seen that that was something that brought in. double-digit growth in female audience betting because of her presence at that event. Just her presence was turned into illegal gambling fuel, basically.
I got one last question for you. So we're looking at all this. There's this shadow industry within this illegal industry, and they've got their names all over football clubs. These football clubs don't seem to be asking questions or anything. Why should it?
This comes back to, Sam, they made so much money, okay? So much money in the last decade of illegal gambling, and particularly the pandemic. Pandemic was real good to illegal
Yeah.
gambling, okay? Where illegal gambling got scared, retreated, stopped investing, and then basically became, has also dealt with the double whammy of then being regulated even more because governments have realized there's a lot of gambling problems in societies now. But who are they
Mhm.
blaming? They're blaming legal gambling because they're the only ones you can blame. You can't
Yeah.
blame a bunch of crooks and start saying, "Oh my God, everything's out of control." It's like
Hmm.
munch face emoji. It's like, what do we do here?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
people you can blame, the people you can control, are legal gambling. So you can just keep finding them, keep beating them up, keep bullying them. Illegal gambling is kind of just laughing, going, "Okay, no one even knows we're here."
Yeah.
They don't even want to talk about us. Then
Yeah.
Yieldset came along. We get death threats every week, kind of thing, on a
Yeah.
on a scale basis. The more we say, the more they threaten us. And my view of it is, the more I'm open about it, the better it is for me. Then you won't come kill me anytime soon. So I look at this stuff and go, illegal gambling made so much money out of this, and that's what they're doing now. Is basically going to football clubs, going to sports teams, and going, we can just buy our way happy here. So we'll pay you so much money that even the investigation, if it ever comes, will guarantee it for you. The law firms that you need to pay, will pay for them. So they'll pay themselves into this position of being, how could 1xBet be illegal? How could they be a criminal company if they sponsor FC Barcelona, mate? So I
Yeah.
have that thrown at me at every conference I speak at. Somebody will be like, "Oh, no, hold on, mate. How can that be an illegal gambling company? They sponsor FC Barcelona. They're huge, mate.
Yeah.
They sponsor Paris Saint-Germain. They're all over the place."
Yeah.
Yes, they do, don't they? They do sponsor those companies, but you can't really blame the sports teams. They're in the business of selling their assets for the highest price. Anyone would take the money, okay? Unless there's a law preventing it. And there is no law preventing it, so that's why this stuff exists.
But do you think these clubs are helping legitimize some of these companies like 1xBet?
I'm sure you could easily level that at any of the sports teams. You could easily level that at the athletes. You could easily level it at any social media influencer. Some influencer who's a good-looking girl or guy on Instagram who has 500 followers has got a gambling promotion deal. Why? Because they were offered one. Because they had a few
Hmm.
followers of the right type of demographic followers for them. Okay, so anybody who's in that game of taking the money at a point in life, a point in society, everyone takes the money. Okay. And this is the problem with the sports area is unless you make it a criminal offense for them to take money from these companies, because they can basically say, look, we're just promoting a brand. We're not available in your country anyway. That's the argument in the UK. You could basically say all these people who are going to the Isle of Man to basically take a license in the Isle of Man to then get, and they're not even interested in operating in the UK because they know that that wouldn't happen. They get the license in the Isle of Man because it gives them a back door into the UK so they can buy sports sponsorship. That's why they do it. Okay. So
Hmm.
basically, there's this kind of, it's the China shuffle through the Isle of Man, where basically you get a license there to target China. You need to be on Premier League football games or Division One football games, and you want to buy perimeter boards. You can't buy perimeter boards unless you're somehow licensed, and the Isle of Man allows you entry into that game. So basically, you'll notice that loads of Premier League games have this kind of Chinese character, Cantonese characters on the perimeter boards, the LED screens of the games. And it's like, I've never heard of these gambling brands, and if you try and access most of them in the UK, you can't. But it's because that's not the target they were looking for.
It's
Their
not for you.
targets are in the Far East because everyone
Hmm.
there is betting on those games and gambling's illegal online. But there's the new web address. So the way that if you're blocked on WeChat and stuff and you can't get through the apps to get to those sites, they're selling it to you by basically going, well, there's the web address, guys, right on the screen while you're watching Leicester City Man U game. You can see what it is. So there's a piece of this which is crime corrupts and crime has corrupted sport to that extent. Now we're also crime has gone full circle on this to basically say we're not just corrupting sports by offering everybody tons of cash here. We're also corrupting it by just bringing you stuff that you think is sports, but it's not sports. We made it all up.
That's great. I'm going to leave that there. I love that last quote. Great. I'm going to stop the